being a director is a very hard position, but it's a love. You're a technical love. You're an emotional love. It's something about wanting to lead that team. And you're right.
You're the team captain.
But I want to tell you, but this movie came about because Becoming Iconic came about because CAA would ask me if I could direct. And I didn't really understand it until I sat in the seat. So that's why I'm telling you, people are not going to know what you're saying because I didn't know and I was skilled beyond belief. But when you get in that seat, what they're really asking is, when you jump into the frying pan and they turn the heat up to 140 degrees and you have to make a decision after decision and you have to decide what the story is and how to hold the line and how for the characters to stay in a character arc and how the story to be in a story arc and more important, how each frame will make up the entire movie. And if you miss one of those things, your movie then is in jeopardy.
Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. Another amazing interview. Today I am excited to talk to Jonathan Baker, the director behind Becoming Iconic. He explores what it takes to become an iconic filmmaker, and we're going to have a good conversation with him today. Real quick, if you do not visit the Film Threat website daily, you really should. I mean, look, if you want the mainstream movie reviews, go to any other movie website. But if you really want to get the take on what's happening truly in independent film, go to filmthreat.com daily. We got like 3-5 reviews going up daily. And if you're a filmmaker who would like to have your movie reviewed on Film Threat, just go to filmthreat.com, click on submit, and send us your movie for review. Follow us on social media. We're Film Threat on everything. And if you want to support our efforts, going to film festivals, talking to filmmakers like Jonathan Baker today, go to patreon.com/filmthreat. And now I am sitting actually in Jonathan Baker's screening room. And he's right next to me in what is, I mean, look, there's still plastic on some of the carpet here because it hasn't been, this is how, it has that new carpet smell. Jonathan, welcome to the Film Threat Podcast.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, fresh out of the wrapper.
And
it used to be Warren Beatty's screening room.
Yes, that's true. Yes, this is in fact, wasn't this Warren Beatty's house?
Yes, it was Warren Beatty's house. It's the only thing he ever sold in his entire career, and I don't know if I talked him out of it or if I talked him into it. It's at this point, but it's pretty amazing. So Film Threat, when I was doing the film festival circuit, you guys gave me a great review.
Yes, that's true. I believe it was Alan Ng.
Yeah, he was. I mean, you know what? I use his review to really talk about this film because he was so spot on. I was so excited to read his review. Out of hundreds and hundreds of reviews around the world, his was my favorite out of all the reviews.
Well, thank you for that. I do like to think that Film Threat offers a different perspective. I mean, while we're kind of forced into a corner by things like Rotten Tomatoes to give a rating to movies, I don't know that I 100% agree with a thumbs up, thumbs down system, a rating system, because I think movies change through time. Movies affect us differently at different stages of our lives. But while we do that, I like to think that Film Threat offers a perspective that you don't get from other media outlets. So I appreciate that you noticed that.
For me, movies are kind of like yesterday's cassette. You just take a bunch of memories and then you lock down on when that movie came out, what year it came out, what it really was doing in time and space to the economy, and then you kind of put it in its proper place when you see it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just really interesting how you can see a movie you may have seen as a child, you see it as an adult, it means something completely different, and the movies that actually stand the test of time, I mean, that I think is really interesting to me. You could say the best movies of 2018, you can use that phrase, But I feel like really a movie, if it is going to stand the test of time, it's got to be 10 years old. If we're still watching movies that are 10 years old, that's a movie that's going to stand the test of time. And it's interesting because your documentary, Becoming Iconic, it's several movies in one. One, it's an exploration of that subject by talking to, you talk to Jodie Foster, you talk to Nick Cage and John Badham, like all these filmmakers, actors. What does it take to become an icon in this industry? While simultaneously, in a very revealing sense, show your own experience of directing your first feature and what that means, and you really bare your soul in the midst of it. So while you're discussing with some of the greatest figures in cinema, what it takes to be a filmmaker that stands the test of time, you're in the midst of this process.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. They gave me film school knowledge, even though I'd been to film school. I'd been in this industry for a long time. And, right before I got up to direct, I went and I started this because the talent agencies kept asking me, can you direct? And I kept saying, of course I can direct. And then, no, can you direct? And so I went to Warren and I'm like, Warren, why do they keep asking me if I can direct? And he's like, don't worry about it. You surround yourself with enough good people, a monkey could direct. And I'm like, but Warren, they keep asking me. So why don't you tell me, when you direct, what was your style? What did you have? What advice do you give me? And when he did that, I thought, this is pretty interesting. And if I take his advice and I take my fundamental advice that I got in school and practical knowledge, and I take something from somebody who has years and years of experience and I apply that and kind of meld it together, then I get a better version of me. And then the light bulb went on and I said, you know what? If I can do this with him, why wouldn't I go out there and start interviewing the best of the best? So I'd like to tell this story because it's a great story. There was an advertising executive named George Lois. He's about 90 years old today. And they made the television show Mad Men about him. And so I had gone to him and I had said, hey, I want you to do my public relations because I heard through the grapevine he was a genius. And so I tracked him down, I sat him down, and he said to me, Jonathan, let me tell you a story. And he told me this story about a guy who raised a little bit of money and came to him and said, listen, I do rock and roll. I want to be a fashion designer. I got, a couple $100,000. I want you to do my PR. And he thought, well, I'm not know if I want to leave my executive job, but on the side, I'll kind of work with you and I'll make you into something big and use all my skills. So, he then said, okay, went home, called this guy back and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Miami, New York, California, Chicago, San Francisco, and I'm going to take out billboards and I'm going to take magazine ads. And remember, this is 20 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago, maybe even 30. And I'm going to put 1/3 of the billboard will be Giorgio Armani. 1/3 of the billboard will be Ralph Lauren, and the last third I'm going to make of you. And the guy was like, wait, you're going to spend all my money, put me on billboards, put me next to, in magazines and put this from coast to coast, and I haven't even done anything? And he goes, you better get to it. And so he wound up doing that, and the guy became very famous. And that guy was Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh, wow.
So rock and roll background, became an idol next to his idols, and then actually broke through. And I thought, well, when I heard that story, light bulb went on. I went, you know what? If you stand with the best, then you might not be them until you get to the test of time. Mm-hmm. But if you get their knowledge and you stand next to them, people are going to respect their knowledge and your interpretation of their knowledge. So that's when I started the documentary. So I decided I was going to go out and interview all of these directors. And I had a lot of them. Like people didn't make the list because I could not, either their timing didn't work or I couldn't fit them in to the hour and a half, and I didn't want to make a 2-hour documentary. So, I mean, we had Rob Reiner, and we really wanted him, and that didn't happen. And then we had Sylvester Stallone.
Oh wow!
And he, you know, he was just starting Rambo 5, or the development of it, and so at the end of the day, this became my journey of talking to these directors as I was about to do my journey. And what I learned was they all had the same story as me. And they literally all went against this journey and tried to make their footsteps heard. And they talked to other people. Steven Spielberg, if you look at who he was, he had all of those people around him. He had George Lucas. He had Martin Scorsese. I mean, he had Zemeckis. He had all of these people as he was coming up, and they might not have been who they were yet, but they were giving him information. Well, I thought, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take my journey. Little did I know that my journey was as hard as their journey, but mine was maybe a little harder because the people that I was in business with didn't really care about the content. But then I listened to Adrian Lyne say, producers don't care about the content. They care about delivery. They care only about delivery. And so I'm a producer and a writer and a director, and I care about each one 100%. I love everything about this business. And I am a fan as much as I am a businessman, as much as I am a creator. And the only reason why I direct is because I'm a control freak. And if I give it to somebody else, then I'm the only one to blame.
Well, I have to compliment you on your interview with Jodie Foster in the film. I've never heard her talk about, you know, her filmmaking process in that way ever, anywhere. And the fact that she, because I always think of her as so strong, and she tackled such big roles as a child, and is a director respected in her own right. But when she talked about her first directing gig with Little Man Tate and questioning herself, and that I feel like this movie really becoming iconic should be, I feel like it should be required reading and required viewing in film school. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the plan. Because
I've never seen people that I respect so highly talk about their first time, so to speak, right?
That's exactly what I wanted from it. I mean, on the left side of it, you have Jodie and Taylor and Adrian and Warren and Nick. I mean, they're all directors in their own right, as much as they are stars in their own right. But for me, the journey was, if I could get every film school, every college, and every high school that actually loved films and that was going to offer the understanding of the difference between studio films and independent films, this would be the film. So we've now offered this film as required viewing to all of these colleges, and then I've offered myself free to show up at any place where they actually have a group of people that have downloaded it, watched it, and, well, what we haven't talked about is Inconceivable really goes with this film, and that is the film that I directed.
Yeah, the film you directed, which you follow you through the process. But what I really loved is you talked about I guess some of the unsexy parts, right? And you challenge yourself. It should be noted that you're actually in the film as well. You're in Inconceivable. You're in the movie you are directing in this movie.
And I tell people always go, why? And I said, well, first of all, because I felt that if I placed myself in the movie, that right between Nick Cage and Faye Dunaway, 2 Oscar winners, that if I didn't sit between them, I would never get the respect from them. Right. So, I mean, as an actor, you want to really get them to talk to you on the cerebral level of their emotional cortex. And that only happens when you're between somebody. And as a director, they just would have shooed me away and I would have been a technical director. And I don't want to be a technical director. I want to be an emotional director. I want them to talk to me. They're never going to talk to me, and they're never going to talk to a director unless you are right there. If you watch Star is Born today, and you listen to Lady Gaga, and you hear Bradley Cooper as a director and as an actor, she is safe because he is the director, but more because he's the actor with her. And you know, the journey is a tough one. I mean, as I decided that this movie was going to be about interviews and then about me, I could only take it so far. And then Neil Tiburon, who directed the actual film of me, he told my story. Right. I told the story of the famous directors and actors, and together Becoming Iconic kind of fits with Inconceivable, because when you're done with Becoming Iconic, if you don't go and see Inconceivable, then you really didn't get what was going on in Becoming Iconic. And, you know, Inconceivable is a popcorn movie for women, about women, but really it's a journey into in vitro. And I thought that was a unique topic. And, you know, the studio had said to me, listen, if you do one of our films, we'll do one of your films. And so I said, okay, me first. And they went, no.
Oh, no. Well, I'm curious because you went into this. There's a drama that happens during Inconceivable regarding the Bond company.
You mean Becoming Iconic?
That's right.
Yeah.
Becoming Iconic. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So can you explain that? Like, I mean, look, filmmaking, it's the most expensive art form.
Yes.
Money will be a part of it, whether you're making an iPhone movie, whether you're making a movie that's $100 million for Marvel.
Yes.
Money is a part of it. You have to sign off. There was an interesting documentary on the behind the scenes of The Last Jedi where they show Rian Johnson dealing with, he has to actually sign off on the budget. He has to agree that this is... Can you talk about that a bit? Like,
well, okay. So first of all, before I do that, I wanted to tell everybody, you know, as film students, okay, I want to tell everybody where I got the most education from any place. And I went to school. I have practical experience. I've actually talked to all of these amazing directors, but the most interesting part of where I got the most information was DVD commentaries.
It's funny that you say that. I have said this also. DVD Laserdisc used to have commentary.
Yeah, well, they have it today. iTunes has it. All the extras have it. And if you go to Inconceivable and you buy it, right, for its whatever, today it's like $9.95. If you buy it, they have me doing a commentary. It's my favorite part. I mean, of the movie, it's my favorite part of the documentary. It truly has me talking about every trial and tribulation. And so, and even now, the Bond company.
Well, just to let you know, I have a DVD player in my car.
Yeah.
I don't watch movies. I listen to DVD commentaries.
It's so amazing. It's just the best. I mean, to get people to give their time to talk about the experience. Like, I listened to the other one the other night. The Last Wolverine. What was it called? The Last Wolverine.
The Last Wolverine movie.
Where he died. And the director talked about exactly why he chose to bring it down rather than make it the Avengers, and how he got it to be so personal. James Margolis, I think it is. And it was an amazing commentary. And I just listened to that the other night. So I'm just as much of a fan of other people's thoughts and ideas as I am with my own. But back to the Bond company. In Becoming Iconic, I was faced with the Bond company not wanting to sign off the movie because they wanted to take what was Christmas away from me and give me Thanksgiving, the producers.
Right.
And at the moment that they had done that and I told them no, the Bond company had walked up and they were just like, wow, what is going on? And so at some point, the Bond company didn't want to bond it, and we were going to self-bond, and the producers kind of stood behind me, and I was okay with kind of following that journey, but I really wanted to do it my way. So everything had to go, under my name, and I had to put my money where my mouth was. And it was extremely hard because they had set me up to fail, because nobody shoots a movie with movie stars and does, a third of the movie in 10 days. And I had to move really fast, and they were so sure that this movie wasn't going to get made with me that they brought a backup director on set who just stood there in case they wanted to relieve me. That was the condition of the Bond company. And so I said, okay, I'll sign it, but I want a table read. And then, why do you want a table read? A table read isn't going to do anything. And my wanting a table read was because I wanted the actors to go through the script in front of me and tell me what it was that they were going to fight for. So I wasn't going to get on the set and have to do it. So it was the best 10 hours of my life, making sure that I knew everybody, how they wanted to own it, what they wanted to do, because for the most part, I will go with what the actor really wants, as long as they stay within the context of their character and they don't break story. If they want to make it their own, and I kind of got that from Woody Allen. I mean, I've watched a lot of his documentaries, and I'm a big fan of the way that he writes and directs movies. Anybody who's a writer, director, producer has to wear all those three hats.
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure that you are left brain, right brain. If you just one or the other, then you have to stay in that cubby hole. And for me, I'm the opposite. I want to be in every cubby hole, and I will confine myself to those cubby holes and prioritize. Like, the producer in me always will take trump of the director, but the director won't let the producer, which is a true internal fight all the time,
right,
take control of the creative of the movie. So for me, that argument within myself starts to become an argument with the externals, which is the studio or the producers. And, you've got to find a way to make everybody happy. And you've got to do it within about 10 seconds of any problem that comes up. So if you don't have the answer as people are talking to you about the answer, because you just need a breath at that point to formulate how you're going to make it kind of all happy for everybody. And it is a must for any director to understand. And Taylor Hackford gives this advice in the movie. He says you can't wait at the end while people are buying tickets and coming out and going, yeah, but I really like that scene, but they gave me advice over there and I took their advice and I shouldn't have. And the scene would have been better if I listened to myself. No, you have to be on point, make a decision, live with everything, and pray that if you flip a coin, that it's going to land on whatever you call heads or tails.
I almost think it's funny, like watching this film becoming iconic. It's sort of like the Scared Straight.
Yes.
And by that I mean, you don't sugarcoat anything. You don't. Here's the language. This is something you didn't do that I have to compliment you for, but I hear all the time with movies that are in this similar vein, right? Go for your dream. You should go for your dream, which is like telling someone, here's some rope, go hang yourself.
Or here's a lottery ticket, you might get rich.
You might get rich, yeah. Buy lottery tickets, you'll get rich. You lay it out in such a no BS way, and in a way that's, I mean, I don't want to say it's abrasive, but you're not selling a dream, you're selling the reality.
I'm just walking the path. I have to tell you, I get beat up a lot for being the actor in the movie. I got beat up a lot for making a popcorn movie for women, which is the director. I get beat up for making this movie and people saying, hey, Jonathan.
Who's beating you up?
Whether you look at Rotten Tomatoes or iTunes or comments or emails listen, I know that Inconceivable is a good movie for what it is. Okay. I mean, every movie stands on its own from beginning to end and has its own issues, whether, from beginning to end. And then if you can survive it, you've got a pretty good movie, right? Are there better movies than mine? Absolutely. Are there worse movies than mine? Absolutely. So that's why I'm always saying that Inconceivable mixed with Becoming Iconic is a unique experience. And if you juxtaposition the two and watch both of them, it answers a lot of questions. And, you know, if you look at HBO Project Greenlight, I mean, they gave you a lot of answers too, right? So I'm the documentary version of that, but because I am a straightforward, I'm earnest, and I love everything about this business, I walk the walk and talk the talk, and very rarely do I compromise my soul, because I need to make sure that I can live with myself, both creatively, both financially, and more important, I'm building my own legacy. So this, making a documentary with every film that I do, is my own formula. There's a lot of stuff in there that's a little bit over the top and crazy. And for me, I'm a little eccentric. I mean, Jodie Foster, I have to say, was a little bit taken back by the grave scene in when I put my own memorial up there.
Right.
And I believe everything in life is by design. And I kind of think backwards. You know what? To me, I really believe that. And I did it because I thought it was interesting. And I thought the platform told the story, you know, kind of like Men in Black when at the end of the movie, when they go way up and then there's two aliens playing marbles with Earth. I kind of feel like that. The Matrix. I kind of feel like we're all in this bubble and we have to be able to see outside of ourselves and look in and then take a journey. And we have to pick that journey. And so Becoming Iconic was telling my life story, telling the director's first time story and their dreams of becoming a director, mixed with me directing. And it was never supposed to be that hard for me. Ever, ever, ever. And it was partly because I'm me, and I wasn't just going to do what they told me to do, because if I did, I'd have a real piece of shit on my hands.
Well, it's never as easy or as romantic or glamorous as it's made out to be, being a director. I mean, it's as you point out in the film, it's constant decision making. I want to back up a little bit and talk about your relationship with Warren Beatty. I mean, we're sitting in your screening room, your home, which was formerly Warren Beatty's home.
Yeah.
And he was something of a mentor to you. Can you talk about your relationship, how you met? And I'm a Warren Beatty, like, shampoo, I think is brilliant.
I love him.
You look at like
Annette,
Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, you could go on and on his career. Just how did you guys meet and become?
Let me back up first. First, there's only a handful of amazing writer, director, producer, actors, right? And then there's one or two that show up every once in a while that want to do their own projects, right? A lot of the producer, director, actors do studio films, you know, Clint Eastwood. I mean, Warren, you know, he wants to write. It takes him 5 years to write. Then he wants to direct. That's what I admired about him. And I, by the way, admire with Woody Allen too. But, you know, he works at such a pace that I don't really want to work like that. I want to work like Warren. But Warren also is old Hollywood. And so when I got a chance to meet him, I had just watched the movie My Weekend with Marilyn. Mm-hmm. And so my relationship with Warren was my time with Warren. He had all the answers, and he told me he made me repeat my scripts to him by memory. He had asked me all these directing questions. He kind of helped me by osmosis because he couldn't believe that I was kind of there. So what had happened was I came and I met him because I bought this house. And he wanted to meet me because of this transaction of me wanting to buy this house.
Well, it's got to be something. I mean, a home that you've been in it for some period of time.
He was there for 22 years.
Yeah, there's some sentimentality towards this home. I'm sure he wanted to meet. He's basically handing it to you.
Yes.
So his baby for that period of time.
And well, so I live on Mulholland Drive, and he used to live here. And then next to me is Jack Nicholson, which is about a half a mile down the road.
Wait, Jack Nicholson is half a mile down the road?
Yeah, and he's on the same piece of property as Marlon Brando. Right. And Marlon Brando died and then sold it by easement to Jack Nicholson. And then Warren moved another half a mile down the road, which is on the other side of Jack Nicholson.
Oh, so he's just down the street.
He's just a
neighbor. But you don't. These houses are so far apart. You're not going to run into them getting your garbage or taking out.
Well, we're all at the Beverly Glen Center, so eventually we all run into each other. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a small little Hollywood community within a Hollywood community up here on Mulholland Drive. I mean, it is called Mulholland Drive. His production company is called Mulholland Drive, right? Right. And David Lynch did, a movie called Mulholland Drive. So,
well, David Lynch he's more Hollywood Hills, if I recall correctly.
But still Mulholland Drive.
Right.
So it's still kind of, because Mulholland Drive goes from Hollywood to Malibu, all the way and enters out. It's probably the longest canyon road probably in the world, next to Ventura Boulevard, which is almost 22 miles from Studio City to Calabasas, which is anyway. So Warren, let's back to Warren. Warren had I had been at the Playboy Mansion for a long time, and we had a mutual friend, which was Hugh Hefner.
Wait, you got to pause it. You were at the Playboy Mansion. Did you live there?
Yeah, I've spent 30 years of my life at the Playboy Mansion.
Wait, wow.
Yeah. Wow. I was there. Hugh Hefner.
Well, I know they sold the property after he passed away.
Yeah, but I'm talking about before that.
Okay.
So I used to play cards with him on Wednesdays, go to movies there on Sundays.
Because he had a movie night there.
And I was there on movie night. So I patterned a lot of my life after Hugh Hefner and his journey, because he influenced me so much. He was romantic at heart. He brought all these people through his doors. Unlike Warren in this house, can you imagine? And I just kind of trying to juxtaposition the two. Can you imagine how many movie stars and dignitaries have been in this house right here while Warren owned it? I mean, so that also happened at the Playboy Mansion, and Warren was up there with Jack Nicholson. And so again, small community. Right. And everybody kind of knew each other. So when I had come to Warren, I wanted to buy this house, and I'd been looking for a year and a half. And I looked at 150 houses and I didn't like any of them. So this house was on the market for literally a weekend. And that was it. And I happened to know when it was going to come on. And I knew everything about the house before I came here. So I walked in and I went, wow, this is amazing. And it was a very dated house. It didn't look anything like this. Okay. All I did was keep the bones. I tore it down and down to the studs. And it's taken me 4.5 years to kind of bring it back in with my own vision. And when I came in, I said, I walked in, I walked around, and I just started laughing to myself because I knew this was it. And I knew this is going to be one of my great loves. And that's spending time at the Playboy Mansion. And I've really been in a lot of amazing houses. And I saw this and I saw the bones of it. And I just went, you know what? I'll take it. It was just a movie. It was like from a movie, right? Didn't know really what I was going to do and what I was getting into. And so Warren was like, what do you mean you'll take it? And he wanted to meet me. So I wound up getting a call from his broker, and I was with my then 8-year-old, and I was driving in Malibu, and he said, Warren wants to meet you now. I'm like, okay, Warren Beatty calls, I'm coming. And so I had got there and I showed up, and when I was in his parking lot or motor court, and there was me and there was agents and lawyers. And I mean, there were a lot of people, and me and my 11-year-old daughter, Treese, and, who also sings in Inconceivable, all the music in there. And my then 4-year-old plays Nick Cage's daughter in Inconceivable. So, I just believe in kind of keeping it close, if you can. Anyway, so I get out there and they're like, listen, Warren is a very much an intellectual. He's going to control the conversation. You're probably not going to get a word in, and then we're going to escort you out. And I said, he wants to just talk to you, and he wants to ask you questions. And I looked at everybody at the motor court. I looked them dead in the eyes. Lawyers, agents, real estate agents, people on my side, and I looked at them all dead face. I said, first of all, he won't get a word in. Second of all, this has nothing to do about a house. I didn't come here for him to buy or sell me my house. I came here because he's Warren Beatty. And they all looked at me and laughed. Well, we walked in there. 7 hours later.
7 hours?
He didn't get a word in. I mean, he did. But we talked about Oscars. We talked about, what awards meant to him. We talked about his journey through Hollywood. I told him things that I wanted to do and things that I loved and why I was there. It was never about the house. And by the end of our 7 hours, everybody had gone except for me and my daughter. The agents had left, the lawyers had left, and Warren and I were just sitting there. And at that point, we got to the end, and I wanted him to be the executive producer. There's a reason why Warren, you don't see him in Becoming Iconic, but you hear everything about him. Yeah. And very few people realize that he's not in the movie. He's a ghost in Becoming Iconic.
Yeah.
Why is he a ghost? I'm going to answer the question.
I want to know.
Rhetorical question. Because Warren is a legend, and he's Hollywood royalty. And he knows more than anybody that if he puts himself out there and it doesn't work, he dilutes his own royalty. He dilutes his own legendary being in this industry. Because I would always go, Warren, I want you to do this with me. He goes, I am doing it with you. And I go, okay, but I want you to do it with me. He goes, I am doing it with you. And he would always give me an answer, but it would never be the answer that I wanted to hear.
I need to use that for a couple of things that people that want to get me involved in their projects. I am doing it with you.
Exactly.
I am doing it. Thank you, Warren Beatty.
And so at the end of the day, Warren, who was there, we were having conversations like my dinner with Andre. I mean, literally, I had come back.
Did you guys have dinner? Did you end on a scene where there's all these Chinese takeout boxes? Because that would have been
I ended walking into his office and looking at his Oscar, which was hanging over and tarnished, and I looked at him and I went, "Shame on you!" And he started laughing and he said, "The Irving Thalberg
Award
was the one for him." He said that was the one that he treasured more than anything in the world. And I was still shame on you. Right. And he chuckled and he laughed. And so we had done that a couple of times, once was that time. And then I wanted to buy the house from him, and he didn't really want to sell it, but he did want to sell it. But he kept thinking, what does this guy know that I don't know? Why should I sell the house? And so he would send people here as I was looking at it. By the way, he would tell me how much this theater costs that we're sitting in. Before I gave him a number, he gave me a number, and I was wrong and he was right. And he's never been here since, right? He was so right on about everything that it was going to cost. He obviously didn't want to spend the money because it wasn't his primary home, but he knew everything. He was so smart that after that meeting, every time he called me, I would go, Mr. President. I would always call him Mr. President because Jack Nicholson, he told me a story, doesn't do anything without calling Warren Beatty. That's how smart they think he is. And so I figured I have to give him the same respect. So he would call me and go, Jonathan, I go, yes, Mr. President. And, I thought it was funny. Anyway, so Warren was this legendary figure that really helped me. And one time I said, Warren, is it supposed to happen like this? What's really good? He goes, Jonathan, it's a different era. It's a different time, and he had just got done showing me, what what was the last film that he just did? The Howard Hughes movie, right? Mm-hmm. He had just got done showing me his writing room. And I was amazed because I do a lot of writing, in drafts, right? And I've written my next project, I've written for 8 years and I've done probably 10 drafts, full drafts on it with other people, with certain people. And when Warren showed me the Howard Hughes movie, I went in and I saw a cabinet and I go, what's in there? And he opened it up and I see all these manuscripts. I'm like, this is pretty amazing. He goes, oh, no, that's just for the one movie. And there must have been 50, 60 drafts in there.
Of just the one movie.
Of the one movie. And I was amazed because, like begets like. I was like, wow, I respected everything that he did and why he did it. And you just take things with you and you if you have enough enthusiasm and you have enough drive, you're going to get somewhere. I used to always say success travels across, and I say it in the movie. It doesn't travel up and down. So wherever you take yourself across is where you're going to go across in life, because you only get 1 or 2 times to kind of pop up before you go across. And so you've got to kind of understand who you want to be. And in this case, the question to the audience is, do you want to be a studio director or do you want to be an independent director? And those are very, very, very different paths. And I broach one of them, which is the documentary, which is independent filmmaking, and the Inconceivable, which is studio filmmaking.
It was Lionsgate, right?
Yeah, it's Lionsgate. Yeah. And how you're a team player versus how you actually want to hold to your own line. It's a journey. And everybody out there who is a filmmaker, they must watch this film because they're going to get so much knowledge. And then they need to kind of figure out whether I'm full of shit or not, and then go watch Inconceivable. And then they're going to figure out who I really am to them and what I gave them out of this interview.
Well, I actually think that the movie, in a good way, could convince people maybe directing is not for them. And I mean this in a good way.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
You know why? That's what the agents meant. Let's circle back.
I mean this in a good way.
I know what you're saying.
Because there's a lot of positions in making. Filmmaking is a team sport, but the director is the kind of quarterback. The producer maybe is the coach. But the director is that, like, okay, stuff's happening on is the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
To use a football analogy.
Warren used to say to me, Jonathan, making film is not a democracy.
Yeah.
He said that to me, and I never forgot it. And that's what got me into the most amount of trouble, good or bad, because I held firm with, it's not a democracy. You're just going to listen to me. And, and it's not a team sport. It is a team sport in that everybody has an amazing skill set that you need and want on your team. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, nobody wants to have a conversation. They want to be led, and they want to be led in an amazing, with ideas and with thoughts and with some type of a vision. I just want to go back and kind of just and say that this, being a director is a very hard position, but it's a love. You're a technical love. You're an emotional love. It's something about wanting to lead that team. And you're right.
You're the team captain.
But I want to tell you, but this movie came about because Becoming Iconic came about because CAA would ask me if I could direct. And I didn't really understand it until I sat in the seat. So that's why I'm telling you, people are not going to know what you're saying, because I didn't know, and I was skilled beyond belief. But when you get in that seat, what they're really asking is, when you jump into the frying pan and they turn the heat up to 140 degrees, and you have to make a decision after decision, and you have to decide what the story is and how to hold the line and how for the characters to stay in a character arc and how the story to be in a story arc. And more important, how each frame will make up the entire movie. And if you miss one of those things, your movie then is in jeopardy. And that's why Steven Spielberg doesn't get it right every single time. And so, you just have to love the journey, love the path, and make sure that you hold your vision. And if you don't have a vision, you have no right being a director.
The Coen brothers have said that directing is, more than anything, it's tone management.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah, could you speak to that?
Well, here's what they're really saying. You hire the actor, you put together the set, and you ask the actor to perform. Tone management is a little bit more, a little bit less. You need to kind of dial it in so that you are an image to the actor, so that they can balance themselves, because they can't see themselves, they can't hear themselves, and they don't have a teleprompter with a camera on them so that they can see out of the corner of their eye. They have to believe in you, that you are their barometer, and that barometer of what they're doing out there is in line with the story and their character. That's what tone management is.
So I guess I feel like this could kick off a series, not just be this one film. You know what I'm saying?
Well, funny you say that. Becoming iconic, half of the movie is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of the pilot for a show.
Well, the half of the movie is about learning about your first time directing, right. and the second part is about my story and who I am. And I thought that nobody's going to really care about just the technical stories of all of these famous people, that I need to give the real me out there, so that in the future, when people kind of want to see who I am, they have a Bible of who I am, what I'm all about. Life changes, and they'll be able to have a barometer to jump from. What is amazing about this is that when I'm getting ready to do another film, knock on wood, the cast comes together, and I'm going to do a documentary. And so,
so you're gonna document the new one,
but I'm doing it differently. So it's a love story, and it's all about love. So what I've now done is gone after actors, directors, and writers that have written amazing love stories. Ali MacGraw in Love Story, The Notebook, Nick Cassavetes, Harry Met Sally, Rob Reiner. These are the people that I'm knocking on their doors, telling me what their interpretation of love is, what romance is, how you gear up and become the better you. And then I'm going to bring the camera on set with me to make my love story. The difference will be, they've already seen the Jonathan Baker story. They don't need to see the Jonathan Baker story. Now they need to see the story of what everybody goes to the movie for, which is sex, love, money, journey. And so I'm going to try to meld the journey of love.
It's not a sequel, but it definitely seems like it's a perfect companion or sister film.
Well, my feeling is that if I'm going to make a film, I'm always, and trust me, having cameras on the set was very hard. Nobody wanted them. They were like, no, you can't do it. It was in my contract. You can't do it. And I didn't listen. I just was like, you know what? Okay, I'll do it that way. And then I went off and I brought the cameras on and I did what I wanted to do. They thought it was going to distract me, and I'm a really good multitasker. I knew what the actors were doing. I knew where the cameras were. I knew where the documentary cameras were, and I was always mic'd. And the greatest part about being mic'd is that when everybody comes to you that in more authority than you, and they tell you something that you kind of don't want to hear, you just look at them and you say, well, I am mic'd, and so let's continue this conversation. And the look on their face, because, you've told them they're being recorded, that is they just turn around and walk away. I mean, literally just turn around and walk away. So it was pretty amazing. So for me, making 2 movies is great in that I get to actually teach as I get to make, and I get to do this 360-degree world, which is really important to me. It's probably the second most important thing to me in filmmaking, because I really like the fact that you get to tell a story and make a movie and then be transparent by having cameras show your mistakes, and very few people will want their mistakes to be shown, and very few people are ready to be shown in that world or be that raw. So it is a moment that you have to ask yourself, am I okay with showing this side of me? And I'm so used to it over the last couple of years that I wouldn't expect anything else.
Well, you mentioned previously being a technical director or an emotional director. I think I know, having seen the film, I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'd like you to explain where do you stand on that? Because there are directors that are just all about the technical achievement, right? It's all about technically pulling off this amazing shot that doesn't cut for 4 minutes or something insane. And then there are directors that they're all about the performance and the actors. Where do you stand? Where do you fit in that between the, I almost feel like there are two, you've got your emotional and your technical directors. Where are you in that?
Well, I like to believe that I'm a very right brain, left brain person. I mean, and that I'm really evenly balanced. I do get emotional, and I do have a temper, and I walk the walk and I talk the talk. But at the end of the day, I'm always with the actor. That's where I first stand. And really, at the end of the day, I'm with the writer. What is written on the page needs to be on the screen, because if you don't have a roadmap, then, if it's a piece of shit on the page, it's going to be a piece of shit on the screen. Yeah. And you have to tell the difference. As a director who loves actors, I love their vulnerability. I love their choices, but more important, when they read what's on the page and interpret it back to me, that's the beginning of the movie taking shape. That's, I don't want to tell them what to do. I want them to tell me what they like. And if I don't like it, I will tell them I don't like it. But I'd rather them really take control of that character. And then, as the Coen brothers says, I'll tone management them. I'll make sure that they don't go too far out of the story of what I'm looking for. As far as the technical stuff of making movies, it really is important. But those are the people that you hire. Those are the ones that Warren Beatty was saying, listen, if you hire enough people that are around you, you can make a good movie. The difference is, do you have enough money to color your film? Do you have enough money to put sound effects in your film? I mean, at the end of the day, it's really, really important that you understand in your own mind what the vision for the movie is. There are movies out there that are so independent, that they're so raw, that they're just performances. And that doesn't work. I mean, you have to be able to candy coat it enough so that when you watch it, your senses identify with what's on the screen. And then you take that journey. So, for technical stuff, I'm a fan and I love it, but I don't tell the cameraman how to do his job. I hire the cameraman that I believe is going to do the job I want him to do, and I tell him exactly what I want before we get there. And, he hopefully tells me the truth of who he is. There was a quote once that I really do believe, is that when somebody tells you something the first time, believe them. And so anytime somebody talks to me, within the first 5 minutes of them having a conversation with me, I listen to what they say and I believe them. I believe them, and I do not really try to change them. I tell them what I want, and then they tell me what they can do. And I know it's a good sense of who I am, be able to tell whether they're going to be able to deliver or not. I mean, look, everyone makes mistakes, but technically lighting's really important to me, but I don't really know how to light what I want. I know what I'm looking for, and I can tell people what it is that I kind of want to take shape. If they're not skilled enough to do it, then it's going to be my loss, not theirs, because they're going to do the best job that they can do. And that goes all the way down the line to the editing. Not so much in the writing. The writing, it is what it is. You see it on the page. And trust me, those are some hard-working people the writers out there get the least amount of credit for the most amount of work. And it takes a lot to produce what you consider is your favorite film.
And I have one last question for you.
Oh boy.
And it's your closest friend in the world calls you up and says, Jonathan, I'm about to direct a movie. What is the one piece of advice you give this close friend? See, I finally stumped you.
Well, no, I have to really think about whether it be a close friend or anybody.
Your daughter is directing her first film. She's asking, Dad, what's the one piece of advice you would tell me?
Pretend that you're standing in one place and you have a force field around you and you have 100, 200, 1,000, 5,000 things being thrown at you at every given second. That is your journey, is to be able to multitask. If you've ever played video games and you can do it really good, you can move that character around and you can precisely hit. That's what's going to be asked of you as you make a movie. You're going to need to understand what you are going to do in that moment. But the biggest set of advice that I'm going to give anybody is that every movie is made in pre-production, because you don't have to think that fast in pre-production. You have to think half that speed. And when you read the script, you get to bring it into your system half the speed. So as you ramp up and you get to the day or the week before making a movie, it is what it is. And if you try to fight that, then you will have an unhappy crew. But if you are prepped correctly, if they're prepped correctly, and you walk the walk and talk the talk, and life is by design. Making movies is by design. Everything in your life that you do, from the day you're born to the day you die, is by design. And that, to me, is the most important bit of advice. And anybody out there that really wants to understand this podcast, you need to watch the movie. And then you need to watch Inconceivable. And my website is www.jonathanbaker.com.
I was gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you that at the outro. But I want to comment on what you said.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, we'll fix it in post.
That's the most scariest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, I just want you to know. They would say that to me on set all the time, and I would be like, oh, okay. And that was my inexperience.
No, what I'm saying is
horrible.
I think what you're saying is fix it in prep.
Yes.
That's what I think you're saying.
Absolutely. 100%. Make sure that it's done in prep. And then if you have to fix it in post, know that it's probably not going to be fixable in post. Right. Everybody says it to calm your nerves at that moment, but rarely is it completely fixable in post. But more important, as we take this journey as filmmakers, it's just, I see myself as, and we didn't talk about him, Tom Ford, big influence on me.
Right.
I'd like to believe that I'm Tom Ford in reverse. Tom Ford is about, beauty products and fashion and then films. And he's done some amazing films. And I respect him, and I respect his films, as independent filmmaking. He's not a studio filmmaker, independent filmmaker. And he was able to get the most amazing actors and do great performances, not being a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. He is a filmmaker now. And for me, when you see the documentary, you'll see a bunch of other things. You'll see the hotel, right. You'll see the products, you'll see everything that I want and do and have done and want to do in the future. And I want to remind everybody, they have one thing in common. And the one thing is that they're all creative. Everything that I do, that I touch, that I deliver, that I dream, whether it's designing the house or whether it's making products or whether it's bringing people to the hotel in East Hampton, which is called the Maidstone. Everybody who comes in, I'm there to talk to them. I'm there. I'm a human. I'm grounded with the journey of what you are watching in becoming iconic. And I just happen to share it with the world.
Jonathan Baker, thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat Podcast. Your website is again?
It's jonathanbaker.com. And from there, you can ask questions. You can get to all my platforms.
People can email you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so if you've done your homework, you've seen Becoming Iconic and Inconceivable, and you've also listened to this podcast, why don't you drop Jonathan Baker a line?
Absolutely. And more important, we have a film fund. If you're making a film, and it's our way of giving back, and you've run out of money or you need help in finishing. We don't do development and we don't do production, but
finishing
we do finishing. We'll help with the finishing, and we'll then take it and we'll get it distributed, and we'll kind of put it out there, and we'll take control of the film, but we'll also finish the film. And so that's for filmmakers out there that kind of hit a roadblock. And if you don't want that fund, the knowledge is still there. I'm happy to give you some knowledge or information the same way that these greats gave me the information. You have to play it forward.
Jonathan, thank you for being on the Film Threat Podcast.
It was great. Thank you so much.
Listen, you don't start a first feature film without having all of those experiences. And I envy him. I mean, because you only do it once. After your first film, you know you're going to survive or you're not. And if you survive, you know more, but you're never going to be quite as alive and quite as attenuated to every little thing that's happening as when you make your first film. It's a terribly exciting experience. And at the same time, like I said, I wish him all the best.
That's great. He seems like he's asking all the right questions. I've worked with lots of first-time directors in my life. I did Alan Parker's first movie, Adrian Lyne's first movie. They always bring joy to the process, and every experience is different, and how they approach it is always different, but it's always really rewarding to see them find themselves in some ways through that process.
He's got great enthusiasm, and he reminds me of myself a bit when I was starting. So I cannot believe that he won't do well.
I'm proud of Inconceivable. More, because of Inconceivable, I get to do Icon, the film that I've been trying to get made for 10 years. And the greatest part about this entire experience is I get to arrive.